The first one is never reply when you are angry. You know what happens? When we're angry, we get into this state of mind where we just want to get it out. Sometimes people will literally cry or scream because they just need to get it out. And that is exactly what we do with our words. We just want to get it out. When we are angry, we don't think before we speak. In fact, we don't even speak. We just blurt things out. There's no filter. It's all about getting it out. So let me ask you this question. If you were to reply while you are angry, what would happen next? So here's how I see it going. Let's say you got stuck in traffic, right? And you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. Then eventually somebody cuts you off. Then you get angry. You start honking the horn. Then eventually they reply back to you by flipping you off. What would your response be? Well, for most people, they would reply back and they would flip them off as well. They might even say some choice words to that person. But let's be honest. What good has that done? Nothing. In fact, what has happened now? Now you are at fault. Because when you are angry, you don't think before you speak. So you might have said something really nasty to that person, which could have been avoided if you didn't reply. And then you get home, and then you feel bad about yourself because of what you said. Imagine this scenario playing out in your life over and over again. This is why it is so important to never reply when you are angry. Think about it from the other person's perspective. How would you feel if you were flipped off by another driver? You'd probably feel angry, irritated, and maybe even a little bit scared. But how would you feel if they replied back and started honking their horn as well? You'd probably feel much worse. They're not only being aggressive towards you, but they're also escalating the situation. And the same goes for your personal life. When you reply when you're angry, you're not only making the current situation worse, but you're also causing future problems for yourself. This is a mistake that I used to make all the time. I would get into arguments with people, and I would feel so good in the moment when I would stand my ground and when I would reply back. But then later on, I would feel really bad about myself, because I knew that I had said things that I didn't mean. I would think to myself, why did I say that? That was so stupid. So how can we avoid this? The best thing to do is to take some time and space away from the situation. This allows us to cool down and think clearly about what we're saying. We can ask ourselves questions like, is this really worth arguing about? Is it important enough to risk damaging my relationship over? Am I really being fair and reasonable in my argument? By taking some time and space away from the situation, we can avoid saying things that we do not mean, and we can focus on finding a resolution that works for everyone involved. Now, the second point is, never make a promise when you are happy. Okay, so let me explain this. When we are happy, we are in this state of excitement. And when we are excited, we tend to jump at things. We'll try new things. We'll agree to things. We'll go out of our comfort zone, right? We explore more. But here's the problem. When we make promises when we are happy, we are essentially setting ourselves up for failure. Why? Because when we are happy, we tend to be overconfident. We think that we can do anything. We think that we won't get bored. We won't change our minds. We won't regret it. But the reality is that we are human, and humans make mistakes. I remember there was this one time where I was really excited about something. My friend asked me to do something, and I immediately agreed without even thinking about it. And then later on, I realized that I had already made plans for that day. But because I had made a promise, I couldn't back out. And this caused a lot of stress and complications for me. And this is a mistake that I see a lot of people make. When we are happy, we tend to be impulsive. We make decisions based on emotions rather than logic. And this can lead to a lot of problems down the road. So what is the solution here? Well, the best thing to do is to wait before making any promises. This gives us time to think clearly and rationally about the situation. We can ask ourselves questions like, is this really something that I want to do? Do I have the time and resources to commit to this? Will I still feel the same way tomorrow? By waiting before making any promises, we can avoid a lot of potential headaches and complications. The third point is, Never make a decision when you are sad. Okay, so let me explain this. When we are sad, we get into this like state of mind where everything seems hopeless. And when we're in this state of mind, we tend to like overthink things. We tend to like dwell on the negative. We tend to like feel sorry for ourselves. And this is not a good place to be in when we're trying to make decisions. Imagine this. You just got rejected by your crush, and you're feeling really sad and you're feeling really lonely, and then you start thinking about your life and you start thinking about all the things that have gone wrong and you start thinking about all the mistakes that you've made. And then you start thinking about all the things that you have unaccomplished, and then you start thinking about all the things that you are not good at, and then you start thinking about all the things that you don't have, and then you start thinking about all the things that you will never have, and then you start crying, and then you make a decision. What is that decision? Well, usually it's something impulsive, something irrational, something that we will regret later on. For example, let's say that you are really upset with your job. You're feeling undervalued, you're feeling underpaid, you're feeling unappreciated, and then you get offered a new job. Now, this new job might not be the best option for you, but because you're feeling sad and you're feeling really angry and you're feeling really desperate, you take that new job. Later on, you realize that that new job wasn't the best decision for you. So what is the solution? Well, the best thing to do is to take some time and space away from the situation. This gives us time to think clearly and rationally about the decision that we're making. We can ask ourselves questions like, am I really being fair in my assessment of the situation? Am I letting my emotions cloud my judgment? Is this really the best decision for me? By taking some time and space away from the situation, we can avoid making any rash decisions that we will later on. I know these 3 points are pretty simple, but I think we all need to hear this sometimes because we all make these mistakes. I know I do. So if you liked this video, please leave a like and I will see you in the next one.